Hi everybody, welcome to the Nerditorium. This week we're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, the MCU, stuff like that. I'm Tejas.
I'm Jishnu.
Let's go. What do you think of Guardians 2?
I loved it. Anybody that knows me knows how much I love the first one.
Yeah, I know you really like the first one.
I really love the first one.
Yeah.
I had really high hopes for the second because the first one hit me in a very unique way in that it is just the best vibe I've experienced while watching a movie in like the longest time. It's one of the happiest feel-good films that I've seen.
Yeah.
There are so many moments in that first movie that I can watch out of sequence, out of context, and just enjoy what I'm watching. Like I've seen that opening credit sequence where he's just dancing on a planet, kicking random alien rats.
Yeah.
Like more times than I can count. It's such a good film, and so I was really hopeful that it would maintain that sort of life in the second movie, which it did. It was definitely a funnier movie. But my biggest beef with it was that Chris Pratt, who I loved in the first one, and I still loved in the second one too, I was kind of disappointed that he didn't actually get to enjoy himself. And it's just really fun watching him have a good time, which is what I loved about the first one.
Yeah.
When he was really just dancing around to songs and just being Star-Lord and being a jackass, really. In the second one, a lot of time he's just standing around getting lectured to, which was a little upsetting. Because he was great, Kurt Russell was amazing in it, and everything that was being talked about, everything that was being explained about his history with ego and whatnot was really compelling and really cool. But the problem with sequelitis is that you can't avoid but being compared to your previous counterpart, right?
Yeah,
and it didn't have the drive and the energy that the first one did. It was a lot of people sitting down and talking about family, which was cool and it was compelling.
It's like Fast and the Furious, except for real.
Which of the 8? I haven't
the
seen
one
any.
with Vin Diesel in it.
I haven't seen any.
Oh wait, that's Guardians too. But you know so I've told you about my issue with Guardians. I mean, like I didn't enjoy the first one as much because it was heavily kind of publicized as what it was going to be a comedy action film. And the moment you have like comedy become like the center thing, I'm going to be like, okay, make me laugh. And because it was one of the newer iterations of kind of storytelling that MCU is doing, I think that's it. I felt like the jokes were a little too scripted, which for me changed with Volume 2 because I really enjoyed Volume 2 way more than I liked Volume 1. And I think, and maybe this is the opposing argument that lots of people have, is I think it felt like it needed a lot of, it needed some heft like emotionally, so I could connect a little better to the characters. And there was a little bit of that in the first movie. We had Rockets, a little bit of a hint of what his past was like, Dax as well. But for me personally, I liked the whole. Man, the moment the chain kicks in by Fleetwood, that was so good. I mean, like that sequence was aided really well, obviously, by the music, but also just because, Rocket goes back in the ship and he's just like, I'm only going to lose one member of, our squad today. So, I know, and that kind of hit me and I was like, wow, not all of them are going to make it out of it, and I was right.
Right, so like, but the ending of it was great, and like the loss of Yondu and whatnot is pretty big.
Spoilers, guys.
Yeah,
sorry.
That's going to happen every time.
Yeah.
But wait, I can compare two moments that are very similar in both movies, and I can tell you how there's a vast difference in the way it was executed. So so obviously I love the soundtrack. Songs are the big thing about it. In the first film, when Hooked on a Feeling shows up, it's when one of the prison guys steals his Walkman. Not steals his Walkman, but like he's impounded the Walkman. Star-Lord hears Hooked on a Feeling being played, and he says, hey, give me back my song. That's my song, Hooked on a Feeling by Blue Swede. It's mine. And the guy zaps him. And then cue montage when the song plays. And that's when you see like them being, tossed around the prison. And you see, that's the first time you see Rocket's like
his Neo,
his whatever,
Morpheus style,
his
jacks.
stuff on his back, and that's the first time that Star-Lord sees it, right? So that's a very big moment for Star-Lord because he realizes and he sympathizes with Rocket that he's a Frankenstein monster. And so without saying anything, they show you a lot about those two characters and their relationship. They don't like each other to begin with because they fought, and they're like, why the hell am I stuck here with you? But then in one moment he sees the stuff on Rocket's back and he realizes, oh my god, this guy has some problems too. So maybe I should ease up on him. Now, second film, a similar moment was when My Sweet Lord played. When Ego takes him on his little flying saucer, the very Jetsons craft.
Very cool.
That was cool. I love that song. George Harrison, you always win if you play George Harrison. But that was just him showing off his planet. And it was a similar thing of like, I'm going to show you everything and you're going to understand where I'm coming from, but it just didn't work nearly as well because that montage scene was at least it had a lot more to it, I thought.
The other thing that I really want to talk about, and this is a good segue to our next section, which is that, you said that you really like Star-Lord in the first film because he has, this whole thing going on. And the second movie, in Volume 2, he's just like kind of a witness to whatever's happening around him.
Yeah.
And I think, like, this is something that you brought up, which is that, in the sense that you've been saying a lot about how movies are becoming like TV because they're very episodic in nature.
Yeah.
I just feel like if we don't get Star-Lord now, we got a lot of him in the first film, and I'm sure we're gonna get a lot more in the third.
Right.
And I think there's a similar case for Drax. A lot of people, the guy who produces our podcast, Naveen, he was also talking about how, I love Drax. Drax is my favorite, and then he kind of got left out in this one with just one-liners.
He didn't have much to do.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like
it was fine. I didn't have a problem. He was one of the funniest things in that movie. But you can't deny that like his entire MO in that film was to be a sympathizing ear for Mantis to then confide in. Because Mantis' role was simply just to let them know BT Dub's ego is actually not that cool.
Some shit is going down.
Yeah, that's literally all she was there for, which is fine. She was great in what she did.
Yeah.
Both those guys, when they played off each other, Drax and Mantis, those scenes were fun. They were hilarious scenes to watch. But at the end of the day, they didn't do anything. So the movie had a lot of things was juggling, as all these movies do, as the ensemble gets bigger. But I just think that like the first movie was he was just a lot better with balancing things out.
Yeah, true.
That's all.
So, do you think in that case, now since like movies are becoming more like television in that sense, do they need to kind of maybe, and we've seen two iterations of this. Now, if you just check out the MCU to begin with, they kind of screwed up a few of the films. Iron Man 2 was kind of just literally the problem of raising the stakes, right? Like that's what they're always going to be doing. But like the difference between Captain America, like the original, the first Avenger, and the Winter Soldier, completely different genres of film. And I feel like that's now what they're going to try between the difference between the Thor and the Dark World and Ragnarok. Again, it's kind of going completely different. Do they need to create a different template if they don't want to kind of change? Like you can't, if you just don't want to build on the genre and just build the stakes up because it's going to end in a huge third act kind of thing.
Yeah.
So then just change the entire formula. I mean, that might work, and they're trying it out.
That could work. See, I think there's definitely something that they've learned from after Civil War and after how BVS went down. And the main flack I think that people have with DC is that they're trying too hard to be dark and a little grim with their whole thing, which works when you do it right.
I'm fine with it. I
know you're fine with it.
I'm fine with the darkness of it. The story, the writing is bad.
Right. Yeah. But I think they've realized that like with Guardians being a prime example of how well people have taken to that, I think Ragnarok is clearly taking a page out of that book and the fun aspect of it, just bring some life and energy back into this thing.
Right.
As opposed to the first two Thor movies that were a lot more serious and didn't really work quite as well because they were like more, they tried to be grand and majestic, which it was, like seeing Asgard was pretty freaking cool.
Movies.
They're not bad movies, but they're vastly inferior, at least in my opinion.
They're very basic.
A lot of the other films in that universe.
Marvel
so I think rather than looking at it in terms of like what kind of tone do the sequels need to have in contrast to the first movie of all these different subplots that you have, I think coming back to my point of movies are becoming more like TV now, is that you have to look at it as episodes. And even though it's a Guardians movie, let's put it this way. I think the first movie was Star-Lord's episode.
Yeah.
This movie was Yondu's episode.
Yeah.
And then the third movie, well, we'll see what happens after Infinity War.
Old Guardians versus New Guardians. What do you think of that?
Well, I'm really excited.
Yeah.
That's going to be great. But I mean, like, if you think about it this way, like, even with other characters in their sequels that they're getting, I think, like, with Cap 1, it was about Captain America, and then with the second one, you get Bucky introduced, and it's all about Bucky.
Yeah.
To establish when Civil War comes in, you have a lot more information about these two guys who are going to confront an army of people that you know pretty damn well. You know most of them. So you need to get everybody on the same level.
Yeah.
So you need to have spent enough time with each individual character. So I think that like this Thor movie will be Bruce Banner's episode.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't had an episode.
I mean, but
we've seen him in like passing. We've seen like a little bit. He's great, but we don't know that much about him.
I feel like the problem of the Hulk has always been Bruce Banner. They've not been able to concoct a good enough story for us to be invested in his character. When Mark Ruffalo came in and started handling that, it felt like, they picked literally the most likable actor on the planet and said, you be Bruce Banner so now people will like you.
This is true.
Like the actor. Which is the same reason how they've been doing their casting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think what they're going, if they're going to be following the whole Planet Hulk kind of search, then it's going to be mostly Hulk. And if he's not going to be like, he might be, just be this educated kind of Hulk monster now. I don't know.
Well, see,
we don't know yet.
It's more likely than not that what we've seen in the trailer is going to be in the first 15 to 20 minutes of it. Like the fact that he's that's what they've been good at. Like I love the fact that Guardians opened with the entire trailer. The first set piece with the octopus monster thingy was the entire trailer. And that was taken care of in the first 5 to 10 minutes, which I love because now I have another 2 hours and 5 minutes of new footage that I've not seen, which is great. So I'm really optimistic that the Colosseum battle will be pretty early on. But what that also means is that Hulk has been through a lot. Last time we saw him, he was flying off into space, God knows where.
Was he on space?
He took a bomb out into the middle of nowhere. And
he basically took one of the jets from Ultron. And he kind of FO'd.
Pretty much.
And he left, but then they said they found the crashed vehicle. So
maybe it was just the vehicle, maybe
he was beamed up.
So that's the thing. That's the thing. We know what Thor has been up to.
Yeah.
We even saw him at the end of Doctor Strange, so we know exactly where he is pretty much at this point in time.
Right.
But with Hulk, we don't know anything about what's happened to him in the last however many years it's been. So if the movie opens with Thor meeting Hulk when he's already in the Colosseum, some stuff has gone down with Hulk.
Exactly.
So we need to get some backstory, which I'm hoping will happen.
Do you think this movie is gonna be? It's literally gonna be like Thor. It's like how Civil War was titled Captain America: Civil War, but it could have just been called Civil War, and I think they just needed it for promotional purposes. And so it's called Civil War, but it's essentially Iron Man and Cap's story. And similarly, the other day, actually, I was thinking, man, I'm so glad it's called Ant-Man and the Wasp, and not Ant-Man, the Wasp, because that would have been crap, but I realized they've already done it with Captain America, the Winter Soldier. It's literally...
That would be like a weird Dr. Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah, no, it would have been called Dr. Jekyll, the Hyde. That's the same thing, but they've done already. I hope they don't do it. So my point is that I hope now they stop doing the character name, arc name, and we need to lose the whole age of something. Just call it, just call it what the arc is about, like Secret Invasion or, Dark Reign or whatever it is, just keep it like that. If it was called Civil War, it would have been so much nicer because now that Marvel has been around for so long, they can literally just take all the menu of characters that they've created and just plop them into a movie. Except, and this is the problem with DC, is that they had Suicide Squad and we were all like, what's that? I mean, we weren't, but a lot of people were. So I think if we're leaning towards that, that would be so much better for Marvel now because they have established a bunch of characters. They can use movies to kind of introduce new guys. Like, I hope Captain Marvel... Is Captain Marvel going to be in Infinity War?
Not the first one, I don't think
Not the first one? Okay.
I don't think so.
But I'm hoping, so next year's slate is Black Panther, Infinity War, and then I think it's Captain Marvel after that. So I was hoping that if she's kind of, very neatly introduced into that, might help. But
if she's Spider-Man's Infinity War.
Spider-Man's Infinity War?
Like what he did in Civil War.
Oh, exactly.
That'd be cool.
For example, like Spider-Man in Civil War. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be cool.
Yeah. So that's our episode. And
thank you.
Yeah, if you guys like whatever you've listened to, you have any ideas and thoughts on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you guys can log on to geekfruit.in and hit the contact tab. Otherwise, just find us on Facebook or whatever else.
Thanks, you nerds.